Hello, my name is Aaron Dunn. I'm the composer of the Silmarillion Symphony, most recently, The Fall of Gondolin. And I'm here to talk to you today about the fifth track off the album called The Outlaw's Tale. Before we get into that, head over to silmarillionSymphony.bandcamp.com where you can find the vinyl, you can find the CD, you can find the digital, you can find my entire digital discography, and any physical media is all available there. I really appreciate Bandcamp in these days. By way of an aside, just their stance on AI-generated music. I very much appreciate that. That's a video for another day, though. So I think at this point, just getting into the subject matter would be most important. So, The Outlaw's Tale. If you are familiar with the novel at all, or the history of Middle-earth, some of these names will probably strike you as a little bit odd. That's by design. And that's fine. I'm very comfortable with that. The Outlaw's Tale is a description of kind of what happens when Tuor gets to Turgon's court. Or Turgon, however you'd like to say it. When he gets to Turgon's court, he's got to relate to them a lot of things. And it's not like it's a life or death situation, but it really is a life or death situation, just like when you're just some person, and you would picture in more of a medieval time coming into a king's court somewhat unannounced and under armed guard because you're new here, or unannounced or unlooked for, all of these things. You'd be taken before the king to probably abide his judgment. So it gives me sort of these vibes. This is what Tuor has to do. He has to come in and tell Turgon what's going on. And very quickly we find out, one is that Tuor met with Ulmo, the Lord of Waters, who gave him his mission. He said, you're going to Gondolin, this is what's happening, go look for them. I am summarizing a lot of text right there, so bear with it. So the tune itself is sort of meant to depict Tuor sitting there, describing to everybody, one, what he's gone through, who he is, probably having little side conversations, because I can't imagine, this is the thing I can't imagine. I can't imagine this being a huge event. This would be something that would be very much reserved, or at least the way I would depict it in a more theatrical sense, I suppose. And no, there's no development of a movie in my head about this. There's a way I would think of it, of course. But the way I would look at this is that you'd have Turgon's High Council. You know, Meglin would be there, Yggdrasil's there, all the leaders of the 12 houses, which if you read the original Silmarillion, you wouldn't actually know about all of the 12 houses except by maybe one mention in the book, if I'm remembering correctly. I might not be. But there are 12 houses depicted in the Book of Lost Tales version, which I lean on heavily for the mythology portion, and just for the fact that it's so old and it reads like it's really old, and I just love it. So that's a big inspiration for this. But for Tuor relaying and relating his journey on, particularly to Turgon, in a way that confirms, oh, this actually is the guy. And the other thing, some of the mystique is taken out of this by the fact that Tuor is wearing the armor that Turgon left when he left Nevrest and he left Vinyamar. And so no doubt they're still trying to figure that out by the time Tuor shows up. But they're pretty, they're pretty amazed by what he's telling them. And of course, somebody's walking into the king's court saying, basically, y'all need to get out of here. This is about to go bad. And remember the words of Ulmo. Remember that the hope of the Noldor lies beyond the sea. So we depict some of that. This track, the way it sits in the album itself, is somewhat of a transitionary piece. It's Tuor and Turgon are having their interaction, and he's talking with people and telling them, hey, this is what's going on. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. And before we get into the more tragic elements of the story, and again, the arc of the entire thing, it's a hero story, yes. It's Tuor's hero story. But it's so incredibly imbued with sadness and with grief and sorrow and mourning, that it's not a traditional hero story in the sense of like a triumphalism. And I really appreciate that. So when you listen to Outlaw's Tale, which is one of my favorite ones to record, honestly, when I was listening to it, I felt really satisfied with the way that it came together. There's a big old horn solo in it. And boy, that was something else. I'm just thinking back, was it February 2nd? Yeah, so we're like a year away from me having done this. And it's a lot to think back on, right? And I'm getting a little far afield with regard to the actual song. Yeah, so that's pretty well it. The melody is supposed to be sort of a mysterious kind of a thing. Sort of a, like it's largely in Dorian, and then it does something else, which is a little different in the middle. A lot of the motifs in there are things that I had worked on for years, and I just found a way to fit them in sort of a different way that my ear personally wasn't bored. And another interesting note on this is actually one of three. When I wrote this, it has an alternate name. I did not reflect that in the title on the album. It's just The Outlaw's Tale. But I actually wrote, it's sort of a guitar concerto thing. For classical guitar, it could probably be done on harp as well. So I'm going to be looking at finishing the other two little movements that go along with this. It's not a terribly long piece. I think it's maybe 10 minutes long if you had everything together. But it was written primarily on classical guitar and by me, just sitting there playing, right? And so I felt like this one was the one that would translate best to the small orchestra that we used. And so, yeah, that's pretty well how that went. But you would hear more of these older motifs in there, especially with the other two movements with it, or the two stanzas, or however you want to look at it. At any rate, that's about all for The Outlaw's Tale. And of course, Tour is not really an outlaw in Gondolin for very long, or an unknown. He's not really an outlaw in Gondolin. It's sort of, that would be a misnomer. He was an outlaw in Middle-earth after he escaped from the Easterlings, which is much earlier. And again, it's the song mainly is depicting him looking back on his journey as he would be telling Turgon and the court and the elves of Gondolin. But I think that's about as far as I should go with that. Hit the subscribe button down below. The link for the CD and the vinyl and all the other stuff is all going to be down in the description, so check that out. Certainly appreciate you stopping by, and thank you very much.